going to go ahead and get started. My name is Laura Gottsman. I'm a volunteer leader with Swing Left Peninsula. We are a chapter of Swing Left National. Our chapter runs from about south of San Francisco to San Jose. And this is our 2024 kickoff meeting. Obviously, it's a presidential year, so a really big year. We have a lot to tell you about this evening. Thank you for coming. And I'm going to go ahead and go over the agenda. Bruce, if you want to advance to the next slide. Okay, as we always do in our monthly meetings, the first thing we ask you to do is to sign up for our next meeting. So we will have a regular general meeting in March. We have them always on the third Tuesday at 5 o'clock Pacific time. Then we're going to go over our good news. We don't think that you hear enough good news in your regular life. And so we always spend some time in these meetings sharing good political news, good developments in the United States, things to feel good about with your activism and organizing. Then we're going to go over our national targets, the Swing Left national targets. We'll go over the Swing Left Peninsula targets that derive from those national targets. We'll talk about the flow of a presidential election year, what's happening when, where we fit into all of that. And then we're going to go over in detail. There are lots of new people signed up for this call. So we'll go over in detail all of the actions and trainings and things that we offer for you to take part in. So I'm going to go try to get my elderly dog to stop yapping in the background. And while I do that, Bruce is going to start us off with the good news.
Yeah, good evening. So this is a quote from Jessica Craven, and she has said so much better this thing that I've been trying to figure out how to word. I'm just going to read this quote. I love it. The grassroots, the resistance, the pro-democracy faction, whatever you want to call us, are far more powerful than most realize. We are the difference in close elections. We're seasoned, strong, organized, and smart. We're showing up in bigger and bigger numbers, and we remain invisible to the strategists. This itself is a strategic advantage. Keep on underestimating us, and we'll keep on whooping you. I like this quote because I sometimes feel alone on my roller coaster of emotions. I remind myself that whatever I'm feeling, a million other people are feeling it too. When I feel that I am the one person fighting for our country, I find comfort knowing that thousands of others are doing it with me. We're each part of something huge, and our numbers make us strong. When we make 100,000 phone calls, thousands pay off. When we send 10 million letters, tens of thousands bring in votes. When we knock on multitudes of doors and register thousands of voters, that brings in thousands of votes. Individually, we have good days and bad days, good conversations and frustrating conversations. Together, we bring in masses of votes across the country, and those votes swing races. So here's another quote. This one's from Simon Rosenberg, and as he says, when we do the work, we win. We just need to keep doing the work. So Laura, I think you're now going to tell us about how we just keep winning.
Yes, indeed. So ordinarily in this part of the good news section, I talk about really recent developments, but because this is a presidential year, I want to talk about the last 7 years and where we started and where we are today to really give you a level set of what we've developed together over the last 7 years. So Swing Left was started with the idea that people who live in blue areas would have the most impact, where their dollars, their time, and so forth would be most effective if we worked in nearby purple areas and nearby areas that could be swung to be blue. So that was why in early 2017, a bunch of us, I think there were 85 people gathered in a living room in Palo Alto to learn about where our closest swing areas were. And Swing Left started with the House, because the House was the first possible check on the Republican trifecta in Washington after the 2016 election. So a bunch of people were gathered trying to find California House District 10 on a map. It's in the Central Valley. It's now, after redistricting, California 22. So that was the level of sophistication we had when we started, right? Where is our nearest swing district on a map? You all know what happened in 2018 and into 2020. We took back the House in 2018. We won the Senate and we flipped the White House in 2020. So far, we haven't done, after we won those elections, nothing we've done is ahistorical. It's happened before. It's not easy to unseat an incumbent president, but it's been done. Okay, then Dobbs happens in mid 2022, and we have 5.5 years of organizing under our belts, 5.5 years of learning, of gaining experience, of making connections with each other, of learning how to use tools, building, and we are ready to capitalize, and we do. So in the second half of 2022, we win a bunch of special elections, House specials, we win the Kansas, deep red Kansas abortion ballot referendum, and then 2022 comes and we start really defying history. So typically when you're president, your party's in power, you lose seats in a midterm election. You lose 40, 50, 60 seats in the House. You lose seats in the Senate. You lose control in states. You lose governorships. None of that happened. We gained seats. We gained a Senate seat. We kept the House incredibly close. We won battleground races all over the country. We kicked out election deniers in battleground states, in statewide positions all over the country, including in our nearest swing battleground state of Arizona, where we won the governorship and other statewide races, and and that was the end of things like the fraud-it in Arizona. That trend, that achievement of defying history continued right on into 2023. So we flipped the pivotal Supreme Court seat in Wisconsin in April, and because of that victory, and because we were able to protect that victory later when the Republicans in Wisconsin effectively tried to reverse it by threatening to impeach the justice that was elected, because of that, Governor Tony Evers just signed into law fair maps for Wisconsinites to vote on in 2024. It's the first time they'll be voting on fair maps in over a decade, and that's because of our victories in 2023. We also won in Ohio, we won in Virginia, we won municipal races, we won school board races all over the country. If there were dog catcher races, we won those too. It was a blue wave year. It was an incredible show of strength and power, and really shows the way that we have matured over time in our ability to win elections. So is that going to carry over into 2024? Heck yes, it's going to carry over. So there are a bunch of special elections actually that have already happened that I could highlight, but I'm only going to talk about one, which is New York's 3rd House district. So this was the George Santos seat. He was expelled from the House. He won the seat by 8 points 15 months ago. Tom Suozzi, the Democrat, just won it by 8 points last week. So that's a 16-point swing towards the Democrats in 15 months. And that happened with a ton of volunteer effort. The entire, all of us all over the country, we're now not just working on our closest swing district. We can point ourselves at any race anywhere in the country and do the work to get the wins. So with that as backdrop, we're now going to go into talking about what our plans are for 2024. Bruce.
First, I get to apologize to Laura. Laura, I edited this slide and there's a mistake on it. What was CA10 is now, I think, CA9, not CA22.
Oh,
sorry, I apologize.
CA22 was CA21.
Yeah.
And everything changed.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, so moving forward. Mistakes be damned. Anyway, so Swing Left National's goals are straightforward. Retain the White House, retain the United States Senate, win the United States House back, and continue building strength at the state level. You'll find the goals and the map that's on this slide on the strategy section of Swing Left National's website. Swing Left National has identified 12 super states, and those are key to achieving the goals. If you squint, you can make them out on the right. We'll zoom into them now on this next slide. So these super states are home to key races, as it says. you can see that it's color coded. So the yellow means it's a state where we need to work to win the state back because it has the electoral votes we need to retain the presidency. The blue colored states are important for Senate control. The red are key to flipping the House back. The dark blue are important for state level victories. And the really dark purple, which I frankly can barely see, are each of those has one target swing district in it that helps to win back the House. So we are one of many powerful grassroots organizations working nationwide on winning these races. There are some groups who are focused on the Northeast, some on the South, and we, along with other West Coast groups, are working in California, Nevada, and Arizona. Arizona is critical at all levels. Nevada is critical at the national level for the presidency, for the Senate, and for the House. And California is specifically important for the United States House of Representatives and to flip that back. So I got to tell you, even with our focus on the West, we have a special place in our hearts for North Carolina, which I think of as the Democratic phoenix rising from the ashes of GOP control. So dropping into California now, there are two districts that we in particular are focused on. Overall in California, there are 6. The 2 that we're looking at are on this map. One is 13 and the other is 22. And they are both in the Central Valley. And if you drive south from San Francisco, you'll pass through both of them. Biden won both of them by a substantial margin back in 2020. And they both have House seats that are held by vulnerable Republicans. So we're now making calls, registering voters, and getting the votes out in both of these districts. And you're going to hear a lot more about that over the course of this meeting. So I'll tell you a little bit about the election cycle and how we fit into all this, and then we'll become more and more specific. So here's the timeline. The California, across the top of this slide, you can see the months, and then the primary. So the California primary, probably most of us know, is underway now. Nevada's comes up in May, Arizona's is in July, and then there's a stretch that I've started referring to as election season, which encompasses the start of early voting in various states through the final date of vote, which we all know as Election Day, and that's on November 5th. Honestly, election season starts in late September in Pennsylvania, so it's even longer than it looks on this map, on this chart. So now we'll look at the ways to get involved. Letter preparation is going to start up shortly. And that's going to run through almost the entire election cycle until the letters get mailed. And you'll hear more about that as the season unfolds. The phone banks get underway tomorrow, and you're definitely going to hear about that from Judith in a bit. Their focus and purpose will shift as the election cycle unfolds, and they will be going repeatedly, weekly or more throughout the season. And then from now through March, so there's a really important thing. From now through March 5th, we're putting a lot of effort into the California primary. And our highest priority is turning out Democratic voters in CD22. As California has a jungle primary system, which means that the top 2 vote getters in a primary make it onto the ballot in the November election, no matter what their party is. So we need help making sure that Democrats turn out to vote in CD22, because if no Democrat makes the ballot, then we won't have a Democrat on the ballot, and there could be 2 Republicans, and that is not a good thing for us. So we don't want that to happen. So please be tuned in to how you can help us in CD22. So in general, voter registration and canvassing are going to continue through the year with added activity in Arizona and Nevada, mostly later in the cycle. And then we will be offering a lot of training again throughout the year. There's going to be weekly events for canvassing and phone banks, and probably more beyond that. So finally, the most important thing that we can do in the fall as early voting starts, is to focus on turning out the vote. So plan on that for your fall activities. So Richard, I think now you're up.
Great. Thank you, Bruce. Hi, everybody. My name is Richard Keynes. I'm a volunteer with Peninsula. I help them with some of the communication needs. And we're going to shift gears a little bit and show you how to take some action across some of those opportunities that you just saw Bruce build quickly. And we're going to hear some details about those. Looking at ways that collectively we can all contribute and win. I think it's really important to bear in mind that what's really cool about working with Swing Left and its partners is that you can get involved at your own pace, within your own comfort zone, using our events and those of our partners. And like I said, collectively we can build a winning profile as individuals all contributing together as fits our individual needs. Next slide. Thanks. Just one really important takeaway for the next section. It's really all about conversations and relationships. You may end up just wanting to write a few letters perhaps, or do some face-to-face door knocking and canvassing or registering voters. But really, it's just about having meaningful conversations with people of similar values and like minds, and having a good conversation with somebody, engaging with them, and just making that connection for the moment is just a really, really rewarding thing. And that's probably one of the biggest personal paybacks out of doing this, is just the feeling you get. Next slide. For me, I just wanted to share, it's part of being something bigger. About a year and a half ago, I was looking for how to get more involved in this space, and not having been politically active really, other than clicking on the occasional link from Act Blue or whatever, and maybe donating to a candidate that sounded like the right thing to do. And I was wondering, how do I take my interests, my skills, what I have to offer, my schedule, how does it fit into my life to become part of something bigger? And the Swing Left and their partner opportunities fit perfectly for that. And it's just a very rewarding organization. And we're going to now go into a little bit about our partnerships and how you can get involved. So I'm going to hand it over to Barbara.
Barbara Kaiser, and I'm going to tell you about the Bay Area Coalition, which is very impressive. You can see here all the names of the organizations that make up the Bay Area Coalition. And it's a coalition of about 34 groups and 40,000 volunteers, if you could imagine, because each group behind them has volunteers. So what the Bay Area Coalition does, it provides infrastructure and logistics for events such as phone banking, canvassing, and other things that we are talking about. And the coalition works really hard to make sure that the events are organized and effective. It counts on its member groups like us to provide volunteers and additional support for events. As we talk about the specific events in the next part of this meeting, you will see that many are in cooperation with the Bay Area Coalition. Now, Judith, you're going to talk more about the next step.
Thank you, Barbara. I am indeed. So we're going to start by talking about phone banking, which is talking to a person, but you can do it from your own home, or as we call it, calling from your couch. All you need is a phone, a tablet, or computer, and a few hours of your time. Next slide, please. Our phone calls have made a huge difference. Over 500 volunteer shifts were completed and 60,000 calls were made. And just look at what we accomplished. We made over 8,000 calls in the California Central Valley. We helped elect Judge Janet Protasewicz in Wisconsin. We helped pass a state constitutional amendment to protect women's right to choose in Ohio. We helped flip the Virginia state legislature blue. And just the other day, after 365 volunteer shifts and over 6,000 conversations with voters in Queens and Nassau County, we were able to flip George Santos's seat. So we are on a roll, and let's keep that momentum going. Next slide, please. So what happens in a phone bank? We open with an introduction to the calls we're going to make that day. In 2024, we'll be calling the California Central Valley. We're also a designated DNC hub, and we'll be assigned senatorial races in Nevada and Arizona, to name a few. And we'll also be calling for close down ballot races for state leg and congressional races in Arizona and Nevada. So during a phone bank, you get to choose which calls you want to make and get moved into a breakout room for training. There you learn how to use the platform, you review the script, and you start calling. Our calls target specific voters. At the beginning of a campaign, we target low propensity Democratic voters and independents for voter ID. We ask them if they are strong Democrats, lean Democrats, or if they're undecided. The next phase of calling is focused on the people who reported they were lean Democratic or undecided, and even sometimes lean Republican. These are called persuasion calls. And we ask them about their values, what issues they're most concerned about. And then if it makes sense, we match them up with the candidate we're supporting. Once early voting starts, we're calling all those people we've defined as supporters, all those, and ask them to make a voting plan. When, where, and how they're going to vote, early or in person on election day, or are they going to vote by mail? And this is for everybody on this call. Have you mailed your ballot yet, or is it still sitting on your kitchen counter? Yes, I am talking to you. So ultimately, elections all come down to turnout. So next slide, please. If this sounds interesting to you, but you've never phone banked before, or you phone banked and it was 4 years ago and you're feeling a little rusty and want to brush up, we have a workshop for that. On February 29th from 7 to 8 p.m., you'll learn all the basics of phone banking, as well as some Zoom basics if you need a little help with that. By the end of the class, you should be ready to start phone banking. And next slide, please. And I'm really excited about our 2024 phone bank plans. As President Biden says, it's a big effing deal. So starting February 21st, we have our first pre-primary phone bank, and we're calling into CD22. And as Bruce mentioned, because California is a jungle primary, the winners of these primary are the top 2 vote getters. And there's a real chance in CD22 that 2 Republicans could win the primary. So making these calls is really important. We will also be calling in support of Adam Gray in CD13. And if you're new to phone banking and want super easy calls, we're calling former phone bankers and asking them to sign up for some shifts because we need all hands on deck. When people vote in a primary, they are more likely to vote in the general election. So on February 28th, there is a statewide Day of Action phone bank. And this is through the California Democratic Party. It's going to be a star-studded phone bank with politicians dropping in throughout the phone bank. And we'll be offering calls to CD 22, 13, 3, 27, and 45. Then we are concentrating on turnout for the primary, and we want to avoid a nightmare scenario in California 22, where too many Democrats sit out the primary election. So we are calling March 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. We really need your help. Please take a moment and sign up right now. Richard has dropped the links in chat so you can sign up to help out. Next slide, please. So now we're talking about face-to-face contact with voters. So if you prefer face-to-face events with voters, we also have voter registration events as well as canvassing events. So next slide. Next slide, please. This is what we have accomplished so far in 2023. We've held 51 high-traffic voter registration events, mostly at college campuses. And we've registered almost 2,000 new voters, which is a lot for voter registration events. We started canvassing in the California Central Valley in 2023 and have knocked over 5,000 doors and held 1,228 conversations at the door. Next slide. We are currently holding most of our voter registration events at local community colleges, as I mentioned, and they're really easy. We wear clothing that screams Democrat. We walk around with a clipboard full of voter registration forms and ask people, we don't ask them, do you want to register to vote? No, we say, do you want to save the world from Trump, or save a woman's right to healthcare, or save the world from climate change? And we get a lot of people signing up because of that. Next slide, please. So door knocking is a little different. It includes some voter registration, but the main goal is to let voters know about our candidates, find out what issues are important to the voter, and turn out the vote once early voting has started. So here's what a typical day looks like. You arrive at your staging location and you need to bring your smartphone or a tablet and a charger. Wear comfortable walking shoes and don't forget a sun hat and some water. You do get trained before you go out. You receive a turf, and a turf is the area where you are going to be knocking doors. We never assign people a heavy MAGA neighborhood. Usually during a shift, you knock about 50 doors, always with a partner. And if you've never done this before, yay for you, but we will partner you with an experienced canvasser. We have meaningful conversations at the door about issues, the candidate, or the voting process. I'll never forget canvassing in Nevada in 2020 when a young woman with an infant showed up at the door. And I asked her who she was supporting for president. And she said, I want to support my husband who's voting for Trump, but I don't want my son to grow up in a world of hate. And conversations like that stick with you forever. They're priceless. And this is one of the wonderful things about canvassing. Next slide, please. So if you've never canvassed before or registered voters, we offer a weekly class that includes information about how to have a conversation with a complete stranger, how to use the canvassing app PDI, and how to complete a voter registration form. It's every Tuesday, and we hope you can join us. It gets you really ready to go out canvassing. Next slide, please. And we have a number of events that you can join us at. February 24th, coming very soon. There's canvassing event in Patterson and Merced, which is in CD 13. February 25th, there's a canvas in Lathrop. And I really, if you're going to canvas, I urge you to go join the canvas March 1st through 5th in Porterville. Porterville was just added to CD 22. It wasn't there previously. And we need to turn out the Democrats. That's how we avoid the nightmare scenario of having 2 Republicans win the primary, is to go turn out Democrats. And the way we do it is to go to Porterville and knock on doors. March 2nd, there's also a canvas in Los Baños, which is CD 13. And coming really soon, we have canvassing trips to Arizona and Nevada. So stay tuned. There's more to come. And next is Laura, and she's going to talk to you about letters.
Thank you, Judith. So Judith was going over what you could think of as sort of classic organizing and activism techniques for reaching voters, talking to voters, having conversations with voters. I'm going to tell you about letters. And again, because there are a lot of new people here, we're going to go over it from the beginning, so you really understand it the way Judith went over the tactics that she went over. So letters are a sort of old is new again kind of tactic. So they were created as a get out the vote tactic by an organization called Vote Forward, first deployed in 2019. Vote Forward is actually part of Swing Left. The executive director of Swing Left, Yasmin Raji, is also the director of Vote Forward. So letters, unlike what Judith was describing, is something that really anyone can do. A 4-year-old can do it. You don't have to be mobile. You don't have to be extroverted. So when Richard was talking about us having actions for any comfort level, any time commitment, any hours, letters are an important part of that, so that so people of any stripe have the ability to get involved. And me personally and Swing Left Peninsula in general are very committed to that. We want people to be able to participate. And so we help make that happen. We've actually even mailed packets of letters to people in far off areas so that they can write with us. So if you could move to the next slide, please. I'm going to go ahead and describe what the letter is. So on the right side of this slide, you'll see an example of a letter. It's a pre-printed template. So everything that's in black is pre-printed on the letter that you get if you come to a letter party or you print them out at home. And the writing that's in blue is what's added, the handwriting that's added by the volunteer. So you can see the amount of handwriting is very little compared to the amount of information in the letter. And some letters now even have a QR code that the person can scan and be directed to even more information about the election or the issues than can be contained in a letter. So Vote Forward is going to have a few different kinds of letters this year. Swing Left Peninsula is going to concentrate on what we call the get out the vote letters. So we write all year. We write these letters all year and we store them. And then we mail them in October, which is the optimal time to remind people to send in their mail-in ballot or go to early vote or, go out, turn up and vote on election day. It's a bankable, these get out the vote letters are a bankable get out the vote tactic. So you can't bank phone calls, right? You have to make them at the time, and they're very, very important for turning out the vote. But what we can't do a get out the vote phone call for a November election in July, but we can write a letter. Next slide, please. Okay, now who's going to get these letters? In 2024, the focus is on surge voters, and the definition of a surge voter is someone who's registered to vote. They didn't vote in 2016, but they did vote in at least one major election after 2016. We're going to be writing, obviously, to people in our target super states. And for us at Swing Left Peninsula, that means Arizona, Nevada, and North Carolina. We're not writing for California in the first round because the campaigns, they're not launching campaigns for California in the first round. So we will write for California Central Valley races once they launch those campaigns. So the national goal for Vote Forward and Swing Left National is 10 million letters. Swing Left Peninsula in 2022 and 2023 wrote 7% of the national total that was written. We have the largest letter program of this type in the country. So if we track that in 2024, and there's no reason we shouldn't, we're going to write 700,000 letters in 2024. Next slide, please. Okay, and as I alluded to earlier, letters are for everyone. One of the reasons I got really into letters was because I loved their potential for involving anyone who wants to participate in making our democracy stronger. The letters will be available from us on March 15th. We have a letters website, the address is at the bottom, and you can order letters from us there. You can and pick up from any of these 5 cities. So you place an order on our website saying, I want 50 letters. We put the letter out for you on our porch or on our bench or wherever, and you can pick them up at any time that's convenient for you. This year in 2024, in-person letter parties are making a comeback. We had huge letter parties before COVID. We actually had an enormous, our first like Northern Peninsula letter party in February of 2020 in San Carlos. And I thought, this is great. This is, all these people and all these new people are coming from new places. And then COVID shut it all down. So we've had a few in-person parties since, but nowhere near the number of attendees. So we'd love to see you at an in-person letter party in 2024. A lot of them, if not all of them, are actually outdoors. So if you still have a particular concern about COVID, or even if you don't, we try to make them as COVID safe as possible by having them outdoors. You can also print letters at home with a personal Vote Forward account. Some people like to do this even if they live here, but it's also a way for you to involve your people, friends who don't live in this area in doing writing. They can sign up for a Vote Forward account and print at home print their letters at home. We have a weekly Zoom letter party where you can get training, get your questions answered, and write with like-minded people. And if you're in the area and you want to organize your own letter writing event, we're happy to help. We'll send a volunteer with a bunch of blue pens and training materials, and we'll help you train any writers that you have. So I'm Laura Gottsman again. I'm one of the letter program co-directors. Kathy Ray is the other co-director. And we have a lot of practice now running these letter programs. So like I said, there's no reason we shouldn't reach 700,000 letters this year. And let's see. Next up is Bruce.
I'm back. Yeah, so incredibly, money does matter in elections. And it's important that funds be used effectively to win those elections. Generally, money can be donated to specific campaigns, to political parties, and to grassroots organizations. They are all important places for these to go. And it's really important that the money be directed to where it helps win races. So Swing Left National is rolling out a fundraising platform that will target money to where it's most effective, depending on conditions on the ground and where we are in the election cycle. Locally, we, Swing Left Peninsula, will also raise money for races in our target areas. And we as well work hard to ensure it will be effective. So right now we're supporting two events, and you should expect more to come. The first one is focused on CD22. And we're really excited about this one. So we're working with Central Valley Matters on this event for April 25th. You can save that date now, or you can be one of the first to sign up through a link in the chat. We're really excited that renowned actress and activist Jane Fonda will be joining esteemed organizer Dolores Huerta in conversation at our event. Our goal is to raise $200,000 for groups that we have vetted. These groups work year-round in CD22. They empower underrepresented people in their local communities, and they educate those people on the importance of voting and how they can elect representatives who work in their interests at the local and national level. So please sign up now for this event. It's going to be great. And Laura, I believe you're telling us about the second event.
I'm next. So as we mentioned, we have a soft spot in our heart for North Carolina for lots of reasons, but a big reason is because it's the most important Democratic expansion state in 2024. The Biden campaign knows that. It's already spending money in North Carolina to organize and advertise. And excuse me, and we are supporting this fundraiser to support voter registration there. North Carolina is a purple state, but if we could register the youth communities and voters of color at the same rate as the average statewide, it would no longer be a purple state, it would be a blue state. So this fundraiser is to support organizations that are working on exactly that kind of voter registration, registering communities of color and young people. It's, excuse me, it's March 6th at 4:30. I'll be there and I hope you can join us. The link will be in the chat. And if you go to the next slide, I'm going to wrap up our presentation by debuting our new SLP events calendar. So obviously, we mentioned a lot of dates and times and things in this presentation, and we put a lot of links in the chat. And we now have a way that all of those links are organized for you. So later on, when you say, I remember there was that fundraiser with Dolores Huerta, I wonder where I can find out how to go sign up for that. This is where you can find it. So this is actually a page that's on our letters website. If you go to swingleftpeninsula.letters.org, you'll see an event sign up in the menu. I actually did this screenshot before that had happened, but it is there. And this is a screenshot, not a demo, so I'm not going to demo this for you, but I want to point out two important things about it. The first is, these are all events that Swing Lift Peninsula either sponsors ourselves or that we are recommending to you because we know who is sponsoring it, who is running it, and we know that it will be well run and a good use of your time. The second thing I want to point out is the big red button that says question, email us. So if you're considering signing up for an event, or you're just curious about something and you have a question about it, please send us an email. If we know the answer, we'll tell you. If we don't, we always know the organizer. So we'll get in touch with the organizer and get the answer for you, or we'll put you directly in touch with the organizer if that makes more sense. So we hope that this is a way that you'll be able to easily find information in between meetings and in between newsletters and things like that, so you can get and stay involved. The other thing I should mention, there's Anne on the job I see in the chat, is that this is what you're seeing on this screen is just the summary. When you click on the event, more information, including the sign up link, will come up. So I encourage you to go check that out. All of the events that were mentioned earlier in the meeting are already in this calendar, ready for you to go sign up for through the calendar. Okay, so with that, we're concluding the presentation part of this meeting. I know that was a lot of information. I haven't actually myself been able to follow the chat because I was making sure we were doing the slides correctly. So if you had questions that didn't get answered by someone in the chat and you want to go ahead and ask those now, please put your questions in the chat and we will answer them. We will read them out loud and we will answer them.
Yeah, we did get a couple that Judith answered. We can reiterate if we need to. There was one that kind of got lost in the chat from Anne asking, are there links for community college voter registration? That sounds like a Judith question.
So we're not registering voters at community colleges right now because of the primary. We register people on paper and then have to send that to the Board of Elections, and it takes time to get people in the system. And so people may think they're registered to vote and they aren't. So what we are encouraging people to do right now is to go to a polling place and register the day of, or go to an early voting polling place and register there. After March 5th, we will have more voter reg events at community colleges in the Central Valley. But I have to admit, we are doing more and more canvassing right now, or heading that way. There are new spring semesters coming up, new summer semesters coming up, so we will indeed have more voter reg events.
Right, and the ones that are at colleges are timed so that the voter registration people are there when the most students are there. So they're going to sign up for classes. Does anyone buy books anymore? I don't know, but the most students on campus are available to register. So it's very carefully planned that way.
Great. We got a couple more for you. The first one was whether there's going to be a reporting sent out. I did answer yes, but that's kind of a generic answer. Laura, you may have better visibility to the timing on that, or how we do that.
Yeah, so let me tell you how that works. So after these meetings, we send out a meeting summary to anyone who signed up that has all of the links that we sent out, that we included in the meeting. But it also has a link to our YouTube channel where we put up the recordings each month. So each month there's another recording at our YouTube channel, and that's how you can access a recording. You can also share that YouTube link with anyone you want, and we hope you will.
Great. Okay, here's a question, excuse me, from KJ Janowski. If one holds a letter writing party, do we ask the letter writers to provide first class stamps, or do we make a donation to cover the postage?
So yes, the people who are most likely to donate money for stamps are the people writing letters. So we do ask people to donate for stamps. However, as I said earlier, we have an ironclad commitment to make it possible for anyone who wants to write letters, regardless of their ability to afford the cost of stamps. So if that's an issue for your party or for people at your party, just let us know. We are always raising money for postage costs, and we'll help offset those costs.
All right, looks like there's a new one here. And this, somebody else, AD was asking, we don't mail the letters right away, do we? Who mails them?
So no, you don't mail the letters right away. I should have probably uploaded a picture of my garage at the leading into the 2020 election. So we store the letters, and you can either store them yourself if you write them at home. If you write them at a letter party, most likely they end up in my garage until October, and then they all get mailed at once.
Great. There was a prior question that was answered in chat, but you may want to just address it too. It was about texting. You know, is Swing Left involved in text banking, basically?
I can answer that question. No, we don't have a texting program. The thing about texting is, even if you're sending out like 40,000 texts, 5 people do that job in about 5 hours. It's so fast. You don't need very many people to do it. Sometimes you need people to help with replies, but neither Swing Left nor the Bay Area Coalition uses texting as one of our tools. It is a great tool, but we do not use it. There are a lot of organizations that do that you can hook up with.
Okay, another one on letter process, Laura. Do we hand address the letters? Are they somehow pre-addressed? This is from KJ again. Maybe you want to talk about that aspect.
Yes, we do hand address the envelopes, and that is part of what makes them so effective because the recipient is getting a letter, a business size envelope with handwriting on it and an actual stamp that has, a picture of a barn or a flower or something like that. It's not a stamped stamp, it's a physical picture stamp. And that's not so common anymore. It's particularly not common to the letters that we are writing tend to go to younger people, so it's particularly uncommon for them since they're so comfortable with electronic communication. So that handwritten aspect of the envelope is a really important reason why people open the letters. It really increases their effectiveness.
Right. Looks like that's it, unless anybody else has anything else for the chat. I think we've covered it. Oh, here's one from Paul. When canvassing, are you able to tell the voters where their polling place is?
Absolutely. Yes, there are lots of tools available. You can go to icanvote.org. And you're standing there at the door with your cell. Remember, we encourage you to bring your cell phone. You really need it for many reasons. But you can use that phone to find the polling place. Usually the script includes the polling place as well. So there are a number of ways that you can help people find their polling place.
Great. Great. Any other questions for chat?
I just want to say that's a really important question. I'm glad you asked it because it turns out that information about where, when, and how to vote makes a big difference in how people turn out. And so, yes, it's very important that that they know where their polling place is and have those details.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
No, I was actually jumping to the next question. I saw. Sorry.
You can see it. It's a question for you anyway, so go for it.
So I don't know exactly what you mean by success rate. So I'm going to talk about it in two ways that I can imagine.
Judith, can you just repeat the question for everyone?
Sure. What's the success rate on phone calls? So the first way you'd look at success is turnout. And phone calls increased turnout by about 3%, which is certainly, I mean, some of these close races, like Adam Gray lost by only 564 votes 2 years ago. So that kind of assistance can make a huge difference. Another way to look at success is how many people are you actually talking to when you're calling. We're using something called an auto dialer that will make hundreds of calls until somebody picks up the phone. We were using it for the Tom Swazi phone bank, for instance, and we're going to be using it for calling voters in California. But we would talk to like 30 people during a phone bank. It was incredible. We talk to lots and lots of people. So auto dialers move it from when you're manually dialing and manually I called like 13 people, and finally at the 14th person, I finally talked to one person. So that can happen when you have you're using your phone. But when you have auto dialer and it's calling for you, those calls, I mean, you're talking to so many people, you kind of need to take a break sometimes. It's great. You have really good conversations. It's a good way to help turn out voters. And it works. Tom Swazi won.
Yeah, let me elaborate that a little bit as someone who's a novice phone banker. So I've talked to people who used to phone bank, and that's what they're used to is manual dialing. So just as we've grown more sophisticated in what we do, the tools have gotten a lot more sophisticated. So if you phone banked 8 years ago, phone banking now is very different. Like Judith said, it's like connection. You're not sitting there waiting for a while for your next phone, person that you can talk to come up. The other thing is your success rate really depends on however you define success. Also depends on what kind of calls you're making. So one of the things that our new calendar allows us to do is to highlight for you places where if you're a beginner, it's a little easier to get started. So for example, Some of the California calls that Judith described are just easier than others. And then we also are supporting some phone banks in North Carolina, where what you're doing is calling Democrats and asking them, letting them know about the Democratic Party in Mecklenburg County and asking them to volunteer. And there, people are so downtrodden because of the extremist GOP in that state that
Oh, what happened? You got muted.
muting. The success rate is huge. So the anecdotes from those phone banks are, I can't believe you're calling me. There are other Democrats in Huntersville. Like, I didn't know that. When is your event? Of course I'll be there. I'll bring my children. I'll bring my husband. So the calls are super friendly. And for someone like me, who finds like the whole experience just like a lot, it's a relatively good on-ramp for me to really get more comfortable with phone banking. So there's different levels of how difficult something is and how involved the conversations are.
This is Bruce. I want to not respond, but one more thing about those North Carolina calls is those voters were downtrodden. And throughout the fall, we made a lot of calls into Huntersville doing just what Laura said. And as a result, we swept all of the Republicans out of this Huntersville Town Council and swept in a full slate of Democrats. And I suspect the voters in Huntersville and in North Carolina are less downtrodden than they were, the Democrats, to be specific. So yes, those calls are ongoing. They are great calls to make, very rewarding and important.
And those are on our calendar you can sign up on our calendar.
Laura brought something up that you'll find when you're canvassing and at the CD 22 too. It's people. I've remarked to someone, your neighbor is a Democrat too, and they're like, "What? I had no idea." People just, it's like scary to be a Democrat. So we need to be loud and proud, as Simon always says.
Okay, well, it is 5:59. I'm going to call an end to the official part of the meeting. So this will be the end of our recording.